Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you are here for our keynote. I'm Abby Glassenberg. I am the co-founder of Craft Industry Alliance. We're the strategic partner bringing H&H here to North America. And today, I am beyond thrilled to introduce you to Jewell Washington. Jewell is the founder of Our Maker Life, which she will tell you all about. She also has a beautiful brand called North Knits, and this morning she's going to treat us to some inspirational insights about the modern maker. So join me in welcoming Jewell Washington.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? Good. I hope we're excited to be here. Yeah? Awesome. I'm very excited. I do want to thank H&H for giving me this opportunity to be here, our strategic partner, Craft Industry Alliance, and all of you guys for being here, all of the wonderful supporters, organizers, and leaders, and of course attendees for making this happen. Aren't we really excited that H&H is here in America, right? Pretty awesome. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here as one of your keynotes this year. My name is Jewell Washington. I am the founder and creative director of Our Maker Life, which is a knit and crochet movement for makers by makers. I also am the owner and maker behind North Knits, which is my design company where I make easy, modern DIY knit, sometimes crochet kits for makers while also encouraging them to embrace slow and simple living. I was born in Denver, Colorado, raised in South Carolina, where I lived there throughout school, where I attended USC, and actually I'm a Chicago transplant. I moved here for graduate school, so I'm just next door here to Rosemont in downtown Chicago, and somehow I've lived here for almost a decade, so time really goes by very quickly. Today I'm going to be talking with you about the modern maker, and we're going to examine some next generation insight. Okay, I know some of us are still getting our coffee to kick in, but I want you guys to close your eyes for a second, and I want you to come with me on a modern maker social media vision. I'm going to go on a little journey here, okay? So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture yourself in your cozy nook. Maybe you're in your favorite spot where you love to knit and crochet, or maybe you're in your studio and you've got your design, your supplies, and your tools ready. You're ready to dye some yarn, or you're ready to do some weaving, or maybe you're at the beach. It's summertime, right? You're living your best life. You've got your yarn at the beach, or maybe you woke up like me at 4 a.m. this morning and you went and climbed a mountain. So you really took advantage of the morning, and now you are enjoying those beautiful mountain views. And just before you get ready to live your best maker life and knit, you pull out your phone, as we always do. We always have it on us, right? And you pull up your phone, and the last thing that you posted on social media, you set some goals and insights, you've been trying to get engagement, and boom, you've hit your goal. People are liking, they're commenting, they're sharing, they're reposting. Everybody's like, yes, you're awesome. I love what you've posted. And you are just so pleased. Feels good, right? Feels good? Okay, I want you to open your eyes. So we're going to talk about some things today, some insight and some information and some data where we can make those visions an actual reality. A vision of a modern making lifestyle come true. Okay, so question, what's the first word or the first thing that you guys think of when I say modern maker? Just throw out anything, anybody. What do you guys think of?
Social media.
Social media, okay, great. Right, anybody else? Young, okay, cool. Solution-oriented, that's a very good one. I love that. Okay, well here's my take. So what is the modern maker? Well, very simplistically and generally, as modern makers, we're someone that we work with our hands. We create physical things with our hands as opposed to working with things that only use digital products. It's a broad universe that does encompass things like traditional handmade things like baked goods or textiles or maybe even furniture, and obviously handicraft, right through to more recent types of making like robots, are 3D printing elements of a larger product. A modern maker is for the culture. I think more than anything, a maker is a cultural signifier, something or someone that denotes a certain sense of whimsy. Maybe we're a little precocious, and we really embrace craft. There's sort of this idea of makerism that simplistically is a gateway to something else. It's a stepping stone that eventually leads to a product business or a manufacturing operation. A modern maker, we bring our thoughts to life. We are constantly driven to realize the questions, stories, and ideas in our head into tangible items and experiences. Someone who isn't afraid of atypical aesthetics and failed experiments in their quest. And we're not afraid to share those failures with our community. A maker is someone who can take an idea and we can bring it to life. We're able to use the tools or supplies that are available to us in a creative way to realize something. We are makers. Now, yes, the modern maker can mean different things to any one of us, but I do believe that there's a connective thread in this term, the modern maker. It's a strong reminder that we have an opportunity, no matter what we look like, no matter where we're from, no matter how many followers we have or who we're following or how we're trying to share what we're making, we have this opportunity to seize the moment, right? This is our time. We're working together to achieve big goals, our small ones that feel very big to us, as a community, in an industry, in modern times. Let's take a look back at tradition. So I'm a knitter, and I'll share a bit more about my connection to the community and the industry this morning, but I found it really interesting in researching knitting history, and I'm sure that this does apply to many of our handicrafts, but what we now know as knitting patterns has been over time variously known as orders or receipts or recipes. I came across this in a research article called The History of the Humble Pattern by Kara Rudnick, and she talks about how knitting patterns have been, they've gone from being shared locally and orally to being shared online around the world. The earliest known knitting patterns date back to 1655, and it was found in a British medical book called Natura Extenterata. So again, some of the earliest knitting patterns were shared orally. They were passed from knitter to knitter, and sometimes they would be used for professional purposes, like for a guild or a cottage industry, and other times they were shared among family and regionally as well. So, and as they were passed, the patterns would kind of slightly change or adapt to each knitter, sort of like a game of telephone. So you may start with a garter scarf and end up with like rib stitch. In the early 1600s, many countries created schools for the very poor, mostly girls, and they would learn the skill of knitting as a trade, and they would learn patterns that way. Original pattern books weren't published for knitting, but they rather focused on embroidery, cross-stitch, lace, weaving, and other handiworks. And in turn, that influenced knitting. Now, knitting historians have found that the early knitting motifs and textural designs were actually adapted from cross-stitch patterns. And there were pattern books that originated in Germany, and it spread throughout Europe by 1524 and into the 1600s. The first pattern book specifically for knitting was called Stricka Mostra by Susanna de Riet, which was published in 1761. Then around 1837 through 1901, we hit the Victorian age, and that was the beginning of this coming of age for knitting patterns, books and periodicals. Then we roll into the Industrial Revolution, so that gets into full swing by the 1800s, and it starts to create this middle class of women who all of a sudden we have some time on our hands. By this time, patterns were really starting to be called recipes or receipts, and people were publishing books. So you had the Ladies Knitting and Netting book, and Jane Goggin published the Ladies' Assistants. So both of these books contain patterns for non-knitting projects, again, like embroidery, crochet, non-knitting lace, weaving, things like that. And the Handbook of Needlework was published in 1842, and this book was published by Frances Lambert in the UK and the US, and that one is known as, it's considered the earliest known American pattern book. So it was during this time as well that the first abbreviations of knitting terminology started to appear. So in the 4th edition of the Ladies' Assistants, Miss Goggin told her readers that she was the first person to use letters and figures to give a clear explanation of her receipts. So I know it may be a little bit hard to see here, but some of her abbreviations were initials, some were letters, and others were a type of pictogram. But like I thought it was very interesting that B equaled pearl at the time, which meant back, and now like P equals pearl. The inclusion of gauge wasn't even standard until after the 1920s. As late as the 1930s, patterns would mention the brand of yarn, but they would rarely mention the yardage or the fiber content, the weight, or kind of anything else that we would really deem as helpful in patterns. It wasn't even until the 1950s where they started to use the term worsted to reference a yarn weight. So it was also around the 50s when interchangeable yarn charts started to be published in pattern books and periodicals as well. So, making in modern times has come a long way. We have a very rich history. Julie Robinson, I believe she's here this weekend, but she published the Yarn and Knitting Trend Report 2022 with the Craft Industry Alliance, and she writes about how this year is one that is full of transitions and how there is a vibe shift coming. Julie's a knitwear designer, she's a consultant, she's an educator, she lives out of Brooklyn, New York, and she has a lot of experience in this industry as well as the fashion industry. And I really think that Julie was onto something because I believe that the vibe shift is here. You can go on social media any time of the day and you can sense it. This vibe shift is something that we're hearing a lot of in our industry. Now, what is it exactly? It's talking about broad shifts on a broader cultural level. So it actually refers to like a complete cultural 180. Now, have there been vibe shifts before? Yes. The indie rock phase that happened like circa 2011, circa 2015, that was a vibe shift. And Julie says that these trends around vibe shifts, yes, it's about fashion, but there's also a temperature check on people's feelings about the recent past and the near future. And so we're feeling the effects of this vibe shift throughout handicrafts as well. This is the time of the modern maker. This year, someone tweeted what was in for 2022, which I thought was interesting. Going off somewhere for a while. Fabric flowers, I'll take that. The financial district, absolutely howling. Movies alone, difficult phone calls. Don't know if I want to do those. Childhood friends, Starbucks. I'll take it. Smiling and nodding. I'll take that. And the rave. Things that are out for 2022. 2001. Don't know why that got called out. Streaming, which broke my heart because I love my Netflix. Destinations and experiences, like how could we have H&H if that was out? Alcohol of any kind, talking about the pandemic, cryptocurrency, and knitwear. I was like, I don't know who made this list, honey, but knitting and knitwear is always in, always in. So if you're a maker, if you're a content creator, if you're a social media influencer, you're a marketer, you're a creative director, maybe for a yarn or a fiber manufacturer, if you're a social media manager, a blogger, a salesperson at a craft store, a vendor, maybe you're a business owner, a proprietor, an operations manager. Any of you guys have these titles to your name? Yeah. Then you should know that the vibe shift is here. And if you know it and you understand it and you utilize it, it benefits you. And it also kind of brings along this responsibility to do a vibe check. Now, I really dug into this Craft Industry Alliance article, and the vibe check sort of hones in on these key factors. A maker that is knowledgeable, and then they use personalization, they use intimacy, they lean into being bespoke or social advocacy, they lean into hedonism, which is enjoyment and gratification, optimism and opulence, uniqueness. This is all a part of like vibe shift, vibe check, modern making. I started our Maker Life in 2016. Again, we're a networking annual conference. We're about 200 of us over the past 5 years or so. We love to knit and crochet, so we thought, hey, why don't we meet up in cool cities over pizza, right? Since we launched, though, it's been refreshing, and we've kind of incorporated into our events to have this sense of intimacy. We realize that as modern makers, we're really looking for things that are smaller, maybe less frequent, ways to connect. So I think you guys would all agree with me that between the pandemic and self-care and working from home and figuring out how to juggle everything and wearing masks, right, and all the things, like, it's very important to learn to go inward and keep in the forefront of our mind what's best for us and our mental health. And that's really what intimacy really speaks to. We are knitters. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them, but it's a yarn company, and they started in 2011. I know the founders, they're excellent people, but Pepita and Alberto, they noticed a trendy millennial knitting on a New York City subway, and they wanted to bring some youthful excitement of knitting to Spain. Since then, they've been in a business for 11 years. They have a very big international reach here in the States, as well as Japan and Australia. And a big part of their ethos is that knitting is the new yoga. And I think that it is still the new yoga because it has this great ability to reduce our stress and anxiety and overall mental health, in addition to improving our self-esteem and helping our psychomotor system. So as modern makers, we're all about relaxing, unwinding. We'll make something special for someone else, but we also really love how to lean into us and make something for ourselves as well. Craft Industry Alliance highlights, again, this idea of intimacy and how it sort of exudes this unique, one-of-a-kind, and personalized experiences. So one of the things that OML and other modern makers are doing is we're having mini maker meetups. Maybe meet at coffee shops, bringing knit nights back, things like that. And this sort of Web3-ish niche-based social network, which we're calling the OML Network. We launched it in January. And why? Because we understand that makers like me, makers like you, we're always looking for like uplifting messages and support, whether it's online, whether it's in person, whether it's through a kit, but we want that human touch. Historically, as we've seen, there's always been a love for DIY culture, but it is making an emergence, and the modern maker will hold brands and businesses accountable to that ethos, meaning if you're fast fashion, be fast fashion, but if you're DIY, then love that culture, because we recognize that, yes, it's about less inventory, less risk, higher ROI and sales conversion, but it's also about living true to your values. It's about knowing and understanding the algorithm, but creating and sharing these stressors so that as modern makers, we don't succumb to anxiety. We can try to battle that depression, that imposter syndrome, those feelings of inadequacy. That social media has a big part to play in spurring that. The modern maker is about freedom, creative freedom of artistic expression. I love collaborating with brands. I've collaborated with We Are Knitters a few times over, but I also love making my own clothes, my own knitwear through North Knits, and being able to share that with other people. Because so many people think, I can't knit, I don't know how to crochet, I can never learn how to sew, or I don't know how to embroider, I don't know how to dye yarn, I don't know how to weave, I don't know how to do amigurumi, all of these things, right? But the modern maker says, oh yes, you can. So again, bespoke, a part of the vibe shift. It's an interesting word, you know, it's known for its centuries-old relationship with custom-made items. Merriam-Webster defines it as literally meaning to be able to speak, to order or arrange in advance. And I think Nathan, who's a co-founder of OML, and Jake of Is That Kin Yarn, will tell you that speaking up for something, standing up for justice, giving yourself and your community a voice socially, whether that be through your own custom style or being diverse and inclusive and accessible, is definitely a part of the modern maker. It's encompassing this notion of, hey, I have something to say. Now, Nathan, who runs his own online knitwear pattern design business, Loop and Threads, he does a really excellent job of telling, but more importantly, showing. He shows that, yes, men knit, And yes, you can connect your passion for handicraft through your love for style, your love for photography, even a quirky, sometimes comedic voice is how he'll caption his stuff online. Jake is an indie designer. He's a very talented knitter and crochet, very successful with his indie yarn shop, is that Kin Yarn, and he's also a trans advocate because in the times of the modern maker, we can be all of these things. In modern times, experts are also saying that we're philosophically, again, embracing this idea of hedonism, which refers to enjoyment and gratification. So normative or ethical hedonism is not about how we actually act, but how we ought to act. This mindset of we should pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Axiological hedonism, which sometimes is treated as a part of ethical hedonism, is the thesis that only pleasure has intrinsic value. So you can apply this motto to well-being or what is good for someone else, and a lot of industry leaders and influencers are coining the term, it's nice to feel nice, right? And I would add that to a sense of being genuinely nice, meaning not playing into niceness just so you don't get caught out on a social or cultural issue or trying to avoid your brand or your business being affected by cancel culture. So what feels good to you? We Are Knitters is some of the softest yarn I've ever touched. You guys know about Brooklyn Tweed? They have a beautiful aesthetic. You touch that yarn, it's as gorgeous as their patterns. It's such a sensory pleasure to touch. In fact, there's something so pleasurable about just seeing someone make or weave or dye yarn or spin or sew. It really turns on yours and someone else's ASMR, boom, in 10 seconds flat. You can do that in 10 seconds of marketing. Autonomous sensory meridian response. It's that sort of tingling sensation that you feel in your scalp and it'll go down your back, your upper spine, creating something that makes us feel good. People are doing this with chopping vegetables online, baking bread, organizing, cleaning up, cutting fabric, dancing in their craft space. Experts say that this is not about debauchery, it's about comfort. So as a modern maker, you know, when you're developing your brand and you're trying to figure out your ethos and your morals and your values and how you do how you target customer acquisition, what you put in your newsletters, what you're captioning, some of these terms is what I want you guys to think about, that intimacy, bespoke, hedonism, personalization, opulence, uniqueness, which really refers to individuality and distinctiveness. What can you do or create that gives a vibe check and a shift of exclusivity? That's the atmosphere that you want to be in, whether you got into making 2 years ago or 20 years ago. And if you're not there yet, you want to start visualizing how you can get there. These are ideas that you can bring into hand knits and all your handicrafts. Now's the time when you stand up and say, hey world, let's be a movement. Let's vibe, let's thrive, let's create something, let's grow, let's shine together. Educate yourself on the basics and then elevate and mentor. Keep sharing, keep practicing, keep selling, keep investing in your self-care, keep being real and transparent and courageous. And then do it again, because the payoff is internal and external. Now I do want to pivot to a few trends that brands like Craft Industry Alliance and Lion Brand Yarn say are in for modern making. So you into space-dyed yarn or Y2K plus crochet? Then do it. Do you love mixing textures? Then go for it. Make it accessible, make it relatable, make it affordable, or make it luxurious. Know your worth. So if a piece that you make with cost plus labor is $300 USD, then sell it for that. If granny squares or temperature blankets are a jam, then, do that if it makes you feel good. Leaning into nostalgia, that's a trend for 2022. Lean into that. These are the trends that are in. This is what we're making, and this is what we're making money from, because we're doing it genuinely and we're doing it passionately while sharing it. Lion Brand Yarn recently released this beautiful yarn in conjunction with knitwear designer Alexander Taval called Color Theory. Now, the Modern Maker, we're all about work from home comfort and travel styles, so obviously this really trend this year, but it's yarns and patterns like this that work in 2022 because yes, it's a modern, seasonal, matte acrylic yarn, but also because Alexi loves it. She and Lion Brand Yarn shared the journey from start to finish of creating this yarn and the patterns that went across with it. They were accessible, they were transparent on all of their social media platforms, so it wasn't just about selling and buying, it was about a connection shared in a smart way in modern times. It's about smart branding with influencers. So for the Color Theory Lion Brand Yarn release, I shared this with my audience as a reel. And it did receive about 600 likes and 30,000 views in a few days. Now, some of you guys may think 30,000 in a couple days, that's nothing. That's peanuts. A lot of you guys might think that's a lot, but the number is, the fact of the matter is that those numbers is what modern makers are doing in social media. Those are the sign of the times. We'll look at a few more shortly. So do you know what the maker trends are? A modern maker does. We know that knit balaclavas are in this fall and winter, and marketers like We Are Knitters, again, they know that too. So they push that with their tagline, all the happiness in a kit. Again, pushing that hedonism. Fashion experts say that dresses and skirts are also in. So modern makers like Meg, who's a wonderful person, she's with So Liberated, and it's her indie design brand where she sews pieces. She shows other people how to repurpose them into outfits and looks. She connects with more than 115,000 followers on her Instagram by crafting a mindful wardrobe with inspiring sewing patterns and courses. We have so much that's vying for our attention, to read, to watch, to buy. So as a modern maker, your role is to find your core and then make it a part of your job and your audience to be like, I relate to that maker. I see myself in their brand. I want to support them. I want to buy from them. Because being a modern maker is understanding that there's a lot of online and sometimes offline noise, but it's also about connecting our world and offering a moment and experience. So I really love what this stained glass artist, Jenny, said, that craft is a part of me. It's inclusive and embraces friends, family. It's the translation of the influences and passions of your soul. To her, creativity is like breathing. The Knitting Guild Association is a global nonprofit organization that helps knitters all over the world to provide education and resources, and one of their course teachers said this on marketing, that we live in a time where people are rejecting traditional advertising and selecting to do business with people who connect with something inside themselves. You can be the best designer, instructor, or tech editor in the world, but it won't matter if no one knows about you. And so I really think that Donna was on to something there. In modern times, it's true. The modern maker is about access within an open and diverse and inclusive framework. We understand what the content is, whether we're pushing it forward or we're trying to create something trendy or viral and create a new standard for it, but we know the opportunities and the strategies as well that are specific to our industry. It's a modern vibe that is giving knowledgeable powerhouse in a way that highlights passion, fun, freshness, and increased business sales. So here are some modern makers that I'm really vibing with right now. Let's take a look at some of the reels and look at the views. Keeping in mind that it's not just about the numbers at the end of the day, because whether you have 15,000 views or 350,000 views, it's about community, creativity, and embracing a lifestyle that feels genuine and true and self-branded. 7 seconds. 7 seconds, you know exactly what's in that embroidery kit. She connects with her audience. Over 135,000 views on that alone.
Finally what you came for, finally what you hoped to find, racing on from her house, looking out for black and white, dark days in the summer, a million ways to toe the line, can't wait, holy other,
small business sells in 7 seconds.
So one was 57 seconds, a little long in today's times, but still 15,000 views, and it adequately tells her story of weaving. And then also I love the pottery one, 7 seconds, 356,000 views. Let's take a look at 3 more. Hopping on those viral trends. She really shows how she feels in her creative makerspace, and it garnered her 40,000 views.
Way every day goes, every time we've no control. If the sky is pink and wide, if the ground is
Just being real, right? We're real with our reels. That's what makers are all about, and Kara does a great job of it. She is a very talented knitter, makes beautiful knit sweaters, and like how many of us can relate to that feeling? Just finishing our piece, we're so happy, we just jump on the bed happy, and she shares that, connects with 43,000 eyes.
Definition of crazy is following one's own guidance when the population at large wants you to follow the conditions that they've laid out for you.
Again, it doesn't always have to be trendy or over the top with music, but being bespoke, having something to say where people can relate to that. That got 96,000 views. She didn't even say anything about her weaving. So again, I want you guys to follow all these people, but if you don't, that's okay. But I want you to take away this, that trend marketing is in, and embracing a modern maker mindset is key for our brand and our businesses, because we work very hard on our brand and our businesses, right? So I want you to understand the who, the what, the where, and the how to, so that your brand can grow, you can elevate, you can pivot, and be the very best that you can be in 2022 and beyond. I studied journalism for a long time. I worked in news since I was about 17, so over the years I've sort of coupled that with marketing and social media. And so I thought this was really cool. I was doing a little happy dance when I found local news embracing crochet by supporting a young Black designer for how she's living the work lifestyle and work ethos of the modern maker. Let's take a look at this news piece.
With the North Philly woman behind, Imani Milan, at her newest venture at Cherry Street Pier.
This is how it starts, everything.
25-year-old Imani Outerbridge has been crocheting since she was 12 in a residential facility for girls because of truancy. She turned that skill into a full-blown business at Parkway West High School.
I was making headbands, and I called them head warmers. It was $5. A girl would order one, the next day they would order 5.
Fast forward, and now Imani is what she calls a crochet influencer, with custom orders multiplying.
I was really getting them out of there. Like, you seen the Philly girls out in New York, California, everybody was wearing my pieces. It was crazy.
Even celebrities like Cardi B.
So I'm like, hi Cardi, I'm Imani. She's like, I'm Cardi B. I said, Cardi, I know who you is. Give me a hug.
Always fashion forward and pushing crochet to the next level, Imani now operates 4 hot pink vending machines filled with skeins of yarn, the first the world has seen.
I keep saying I just want to keep moving the needle, literally, in this industry.
They're stocked with Imani's custom dyed colors with fun names:
Birthday cake, fruity pebbles, moon rock,
Poochie Punch, and Prada Party. And she wants people to know every success like this starts with that first thread.
A string to my dream. Like, that's my slogan, turning a piece of string into my dream, because it starts with a piece of string.
Starts with a piece of string. Imani now has 4 vending machines around the area and a slew of celebrity clients, including Megan Thee Stallion and others. So yes, you can buy the yarn and the needle in the vending machines, but if you want the custom designs, you reach out to her on Instagram. That's her jam.
Yeah. Pretty cool, right? Now you guys may be thinking, Jewel, I want to grow my brand and business to where ABC Local 6 News is calling me. And okay, cool. There are some big platforms here where you can, plan and map out that quest. Now, how many of you are on social media and know these icons? Okay, good. How many of you are posting videos and getting maybe 100 views? 100 views on your video? Okay. How about 500? Who's posted a video and gotten 1,000? Nice. I'm impressed. 10,000? Okay, I'm gonna go big here. How many of you have ever posted a video online and gotten 1 million or more views? All right. Well, how many of you know this bad boy right here? Let me see. Bye-bye, Instagram. TikTok, where their tagline is literally, trend starts here. Say hello to TikTok, and if you're a modern maker or you want to be and you haven't met TikTok yet, now's the time to get to know this social media platform. Remember when we closed our eyes earlier this morning and we were doing some envisioning? Okay, if you learn and utilize TikTok in conjunction with your other business goals, this can yield incredible ROI for your brand. Now, I'm a millennial, so I'm trying to get revved up with TikTok. It took a little while because I'm like, oh my God, I cannot do another social media platform. It's a lot. But I personally know someone who's gotten 1 million plus views, not on one TikTok, not two, but more than 3. He's a great person. His name is Vincent, and he has a yarn punk movement that he started, and he runs his own amigurumi crochet business called Not Bad. So let's just take a look. These are 4 of his clips. These are all the view numbers here. And on the last one, I tried to bleep out, but just so you guys know.
Up the safe, a lot to say. Face that'll put you in your place. 7 letters on the plate when I break.
Pretty cool, right? 1.8 million, 2.1 million twice. That one, 15.6 million views. Vincent really understands vibe shift. He understands vibe check. He implements all of these things. Personalization, intimacy, he's a social advocate. He understands how to make you feel good. He's all of this stuff. And he's doing it on a social media platform that's not even primarily targeting his age group. And his numbers are phenomenal. So this weekend, I want you guys to take some time out, if you haven't, and go and explore TikTok. Search #YarnTalk, search #makers of TikTok, and you will see the crazy numbers and the sheer amount of just creativity. If you set aside even just 2 hours a week, maybe 2 hours a month to record, edit, and post a TikTok in your niche within the vibe shift, you have the potential to yield really high numbers. If you want, you can even pay somebody to do it. That's almost where I'm at. And that's just the algorithm working for you. That's just facts. Here's a picture of me. I taught myself how to knit in undergrad. I was using it as a way of a de-stressor in college. I had a lot going on. I learned at a knit night how to cast on and picked it up, fell in love with it, really used it as a way for slow living and just to be calm. After I finished graduate school here in Chicago, I actually started my Etsy shop with North Knits, and a couple years later, these are my friends and I, and we're the co-founder of Our Maker Life. We started that in 2016. Now, why did I start North Knits in my 20s and my 30s? Because I knew that there was something new and fresh that I could have the fortitude to lean into. Yeah, traditional. Knitting and crochet is traditional, right? But it's also modern. And I really want to have a mindset to know when things online and offline have potentials for makers. And social media gives potential for makers. Let's look at some factual data. Now, TikTok quickly rose to popularity, global popularity, after the acquisition of Musical.ly in 2018. The platform is very popular here in the US. For lip sync short videos, well, Musical.ly was. It merged with TikTok in August of 2018. After the acquisition, TikTok not only consolidated its global audience, but it increased its first-time installs by almost 400% year over year. They reached 740 million new users in 2021. Whether you love it, you hate it, they are making waves on the internet right now. And modern makers, we know this. We embrace the data. We make the facts, the analytics, the algorithm, all that. We make it work for our B2B. In 2021 of last year, in September of last year rather, TikTok announced that they had 1 billion global monthly active users, placing it 6th in a ranking of the world's most active social media platforms. Meanwhile, it published data showing that marketers, if you're doing any type of marketing, you have the potential to reach 970.2 million users over the age of 18. And Kipios, the latest figures here, indicates that marketers can reach about 12.2% of all of the people on Earth just using ads on TikTok. So, that's a lot of opportunity. May not watch this whole thing here. It's pretty quick though, but this is one of the viral trends on on TikTok. It is a Starbucks viral drink trend, which is a lot to say, but they're doing incredible numbers. I mean, almost bigger than Vincent's numbers just by creating.
Try this drink at
Starbucks
Starbucks.
drinks.
I did a weird weekend episode about rap.
5 pumps of white mocha.
My money
Espresso.
don't jiggle, jiggle. It folds. I like to see you wiggle, wiggle, for sure. And make you wanna
Extra
dribble, dribble.
caramel
You know,
drizzle.
riding in my Fiat.
Milk.
You really have to see it. 6'2" in a compass.
Ice.
No slack.
Vanilla
Luckily,
sweet
the
cream
seats go
cold
clack. I got
foam.
a knack to relax in my
Frost.
body. Sipping some red wine. Nice.
Your drink is ready. Check it out. How to order. 9.8 out of 10.
Barista, now social media influencer, he's making cash, and as is Starbucks. They're utilizing influencers to help promote their brand. And modern makers in our handicraft industry, we know how to get on viral trends like this and connect it to yarn and make it work for us. People like Vincent are doing that. Now, if you're still not into TikTok yet, let's look at Instagram. Kipio shows the latest figures that the data reveals that Instagram said its audience reach grew by 12.8% over the past 12 months. So to put that figure into perspective, advertisers can now reach 165 million more users on Instagram than they could this time last year. Let's look at the audience age on Instagram. It averages about 30 million for 55 and up and over 460 million depending on your age group of 18 to 24. All of that's big numbers. A lot of times we think that we have aged ourselves out on social media, but the numbers just do not show that. Media hype and headlines sometimes make it difficult to understand who really is on Facebook. And a lot of articles have said that younger people sort of had this exodus of leaving Facebook, but the data show that that's not true, that young people are still some of the heaviest users on Facebook around the world, especially in developing economies. The average for 65 and up is 114 million, 481 million for ages 18 to 24, and over 643 million for ages 25 to 34. And again, this is just a snapshot. I had to edit out so much data of the marketing and advertising and algorithm data that's literally at our fingertips. You guys can Google this. So what's the takeaway here? Social media, video, it's king and queen on the internet right now. And the next generation, it's no longer a checkers game of just posting pretty photos. I know a lot of us miss that, I do. But we're now in a chess season of where we're creating digital content, how we influence and share that with our audience and followers, what we're making, when we're making, how we're making. It's chess, not checkers. And though we're not at checkmate yet with TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, any of these, I believe that these brands can work for our brands and our businesses in a beneficial way. Again, a little bit about our Maker Life. I started it in 2016 with the desire to connect makers. We've got knitters, crocheters, weavers, yarn dyers, people who want to pursue business, pattern designers, industry influencers. We understand this vibe shift. We lean into the vibe check, and we know our numbers. In the last 90 days, I know that OML has reached 165,000 accounts. I know that we're actively engaging when we post with 16.4 thousand accounts. I know our top countries. I know our primary ages. I know based on our reach, we have the average to convert another 100,000 people who aren't following OML to start following OML. We reach 127,000 with our reels. These are things that you should be thinking about when you really want to embrace modern making. Yes, it's about cute, it's about creativity, it's about having fun, but it's also about knowing your numbers. I was thinking about this in February 2016 when I started Our Maker Life. Where could I be in the online, digital, and social media evolution? And I'm thinking about that now, still. And you guys should be thinking about it too. So one of the big questions that you have to ask yourself is, what's my digital marketing performance? Measuring the performance of digital marketing is critical to determining your ROI, but a lot of high-level marketers don't like to do it. I know a lot of us as makers, we don't really like to do that. We're choosing to focus more on other areas of our business and ignoring our digital marketing performance, and then in turn, because we don't understand it, we get frustrated through social media. We don't know why we're not reaching people. We don't know why we're not getting likes. But you've got to ask yourself this. So do I need to create targeted ads? Can I afford to invest in Google AdSense? What are my social media and Web3 community insights? Do I even know what Web3 is? And knowing this stuff, do you know your numbers? Because for centuries, your numbers affect your bottom line. And your content creation affects your numbers. A 2022 CMO survey found that less than 40% of high-level marketers believe that they're effectively tracking their own data. And I think that those percentages are substantially lower for people in handicraft. So many of us no doubt have doubts about our analytical process since new metrics continue to emerge. And it does cause a learning curve. The problem of tracking social media marketing is compounded, the survey showed, by these two issues: the lack of alignment on your digital marketing objectives and not having the right systems in place to track your customer engagement. So if you're trying to get your social media marketing metrics in order, Instagram, I think, is a great place to start. TikTok is not slowing down. It is one of the most valuable marketing and sales channels for e-commerce business. Users are often believed to be more engaged on Instagram than they are on Facebook and Twitter, and Instagram yields the second highest purchases out of all social media platforms in the US. So I do want us to quickly take a look at some metrics here, and I want you to think about whether you're leveraging the full potential of even just Instagram for your business. Are you successfully tracking your performance? Maybe you're not, maybe you don't feel like you need to, maybe you don't want to, maybe you're not sure how to. But these stats, analyzed by Bazaar Voice, they surveyed some marketing people out of 500 clients across 18 different retail and service industries, and they show where the bar is set, because we don't want to be a sad kitty. We want to know our numbers. So you want to know things like this. If these words seem foreign to you, this is what you want to get to know. Do you know your reach rate? That's the percentages of your followers that see your post or story. If you're a larger brand, you may want to aim to reach around 12% reach rate for your post and 2% for your story. If you're a smaller brand, then you want to kind of flip that and aim to reach around 32% for your post and around 8% through your stories. Do you know your conversion rate? The percentage of total visitors to your website that convert. Now, depending on your business goal, that may be conversion to your newsletter or signing up for a subscription or even making a purchase. But it's important for you to know, based on the size of your brand, what your goals are that you need to be hitting. Do you know your post story reach? Now, there's not a lot of data here, but people do use it for brand marketing. And the number of active users who are on Instagram who are posting stories, it's definitely increasing. So it's something that you want to pay attention to. Do you know your engagement rate? How many people are interacting with your content compared to how many people see it? So if you want to know how to get your engagement rate, you take your comments, your likes, your saves, you divide that by your total number of followers. Do you know your engagement of your photos versus your videos? Again, people really want photo to lead, especially on Instagram, but Instagram is competing with TikTok, so they are not going to. I've had to let it go. But Instagram, I would say in 1 to 5 years, I wouldn't be surprised if it was all video-based, but it's definitely primarily video-based as of this year. So you have to pay attention to that. How are you engaging with people? Do you know your visual content engagement rate by your industry? And because a lot of times we can start to feel inadequate in our industry, but step out of it a second. Go look at some other industries. Look at your competing industry. How are they performing with their visual content? And then you can use that as a basis to figure out where you want to perform and where you want to track. Are you looking into when are the most engaging times to post on Instagram? Because this stuff is out here. For top performers, they say that the posting times that result in the highest engagement rates are between 7 a.m. Eastern and 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern. I like to post on OML between 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern, and we get really good engagement there. So again, you just can take a look into these numbers. Look at the data for how many people are saving your stories. How many people are tapping forward? Do you know that? So your metrics reports, they can tell you a lot. If you're a smaller brand, again, you really want to see your reach rate, your conversion rate, your engagement rate. If you're a larger brand, you really want to look into your saves, your story completion. How many people are actually watching your whole story before they click off? And your story tap forward rate. So to improve your Instagram performance metrics, no matter how many followers you have, marketers say that you should post daily, comment to everybody, like 10 accounts before you post. Don't let yourself get too overwhelmed by this. I posted every day for years, and for years I had burnout. So what works best for me, again, that intimacy, what works for my soul, what makes me feel good, I post every couple of days. If that works for you, then do that. I'm not liking 10 pages before I post my content. Don't have time. So if that doesn't work for you either, don't do it. But then pay attention to your engagement rate percentages. Or maybe try it. Maybe one day post a reel, but like 10 accounts before you post it and see if you have more engagement. Because the algorithm is always watching. If you test it out, if you see it, if you pivot as necessary, you will see results. One other thing, I know we're getting close to time here, but I did want to touch on Web3. How many of you guys are familiar with Web3? Been hearing stuff about this? Yeah. A quick, easy description for this is it's the next phase of the internet, which focuses on decentralization and security. It includes new technologies like blockchain, which is revolutionizing how we interact with the internet. And to be successful in this new era of the internet, you need to know and embrace a variety of different skills. So right now we're still in Web 2.0. Web 1.0 was like, I don't know, AOL, Yellow Pages, stuff like that. But Web 3 is coming. Some people already say that it's here. I think it's already here. Again, I see next generation in this. Some key features of Web 3.0, blockchain technology, smart contracts, decentralization. People are very frustrated of how Instagram does control our content because a lot of that people use that for their full-time businesses. Same with Facebook, similar with TikTok. People want to decentralize and have their content be owned by them. Privacy and security, which frustrates a lot of content influencers as well. Are you willing to learn this stuff? Because the modern maker is building Web3 based, Web3-ish based platforms today, specifically catered to our community. I would call the OML network Web3 based because we're not on Facebook, we're not on Instagram, we're not on TikTok. We control our users. Gina Bianchi, she's the founder of Mighty Network, which is the basis platform for what we built the OML network on. And we're not the only ones. I've seen quite a few other knitters, people in handicrafts, really utilizing Mighty Network specifically. And this is what she says about it. Web3 is about shared upside and shared ownership, a community and creating value as a community. So when you create, whether it's an NFT or whether it's a token, the value of it isn't in that one sort of transaction. It's in what happens to that asset over time. So how do you build? How do you create value over time? You have lots of different reasons to come together. So it's not just about the creator pushing out content to an audience. Value comes in how does an asset grow in value? Well, that comes from the community. She said this on a podcast, and I think that she was spot on, and it's really a basis of why she's created Mighty Network. So to conclude, the internet and online and social and digital content, it's going faster than ever. It's making faster waves with each new technological and app release daily, and you have an opportunity to learn it and utilize it in an engaged, comprehensive manner that works for your business. You don't have to feel defeated by algorithms. You don't have to be defeated by, thinking that you're a certain age and that caps you on using a certain app. Instead, embrace it. Use it as a tool to build community, to become authoritative in your industry. Use it to avoid social burnout for yourselves and others. Use this and everything that I've showed you this morning to be a maker that's modern. Never forgetting where you come from, but absolutely knowing where you're going. So will you? Or will you let modern times pass you by like history that seems to flee so quickly? The opportunity has been, is, and will always be yours. But this is Next Generation. Thank you. So we may have a little bit of time for questions, if anybody has any questions.
Raise your hand.
2 questions, okay. Not all at once. Yes.
I'll ask a question. With what you've done over the last year, would you say that
We have a microphone.
over the last year, what would you say would be probably the number one most impactful thing you've done, either to position yourself socially and or financially?
That's a great question. I think in the last year, definitely the most impactful thing is creating the OML network on Web3, because it's a lot of conversation, particularly among Gen Z, where again, they want to start decentralizing. You saw a lot of this with Bitcoin, with cryptocurrency. People don't want the banks controlling them. Young people feel the same way about social media. They're frustrated. So being able to learn about that trend, I think has been very, very impactful. I would also say creating reels. It was something that my brands particularly, I was a little hesitant to do it. We really, really were very successful with photo base, particularly on Instagram. So making that shift and pivoting and saying, okay, well, we see that makers are posting reels and our Instagram is primarily a repost app, so we have to figure out a way where and how can we just reshare reels. So we figured out how to do that, and it's been very successful. It's created engagement and activity back on our page. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, sorry. On Instagram when we all did photos and we all had a flavor or a color or a style that made our page look beautiful, how important is it to do that across Reels too, or can you be more random? Do you have any sense on that?
I've really seen both. I think that's a great question. I think it goes along with what you're trying to do, actually. Now, I mean, if you're just trying to share your pieces that you make, you may not be able to get as much consistency there because all your pieces may look different. Or, if you are creating a sweater one day, a scarf one day, maybe take a couple of photos of your sweater, post those, and then post your scarves. I do see a lot of makers in the industry actually becoming thought leaders like this, so giving information, how can you make your reel successful? Something like that, where it's a little bit more service informational based as opposed to the product. You can buy templates straight off of one of the programs that I'm going to be talking about in my pattern template workshop tomorrow is using Canva. Canva has full templates ready for you, ready for stories, ready for your feed. That way, every time somebody goes to your reel, you have the same cover on it. And that really does keep people scrolling. It does keep them scrolling more than if you have the prettiest sweater photos, but it all looks a little jumbled. So yeah, take that time, figure out, what do I want my brand colors to be? What do I want my font to look like? How often do I want to post, and making sure that stuff is consistent? Because even if it's subconscious, people who are on social media, they pay attention to that. So I would say maybe test it out. I think for OML, we're a little bit more sporadic because we are posting so many different type of makers. But for North Knits, I try to be a little bit more streamlined. I like to stick to my neutral colors. I like to have a certain vibe that, again, still embraces that idea of slow living. I'm not outright saying that, but I'm showing that in how my feed looks. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Jewell. Really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
It was very, very interesting.
Thank you.
And if we have any further questions, I suggest that I would imagine Jewell has time to ask and answer more questions outside. We just want to be respectful for our next speaker, who will be starting here in just 15 minutes. So if you have any further questions, please go ahead and ask them outside if you don't mind. Thank you.